This is the pattern 1756 Sea Service pistol. It was designed in Great Britain in 1756, and they manufactured this specific model up until about 1780 when they replaced it with another model that had a shorter barrel. But this weapon and its second generation were used up into and through the Napoleonic War, because weapons technology really didn't advance that much until the middle of the 19th century when they developed the percussion cap. Now, this weapon is a .62 caliber pistol. Now, when you hear the term caliber, I'm not meaning to insult any of you, but since this is my first video, my first descriptive video about firearms, I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the basics so you know what I'm talking about, or so I know that you know what I'm talking about. Now, when someone says a number followed by the word caliber, what they generally mean is the diameter of either the bore of the weapon or the diameter of the projectile in inches. This is a .62 caliber pistol, which means the diameter of its bore is 0.62 inches. It fires a .60 caliber ball. The diameter of this is 0.6 inches. Now you notice that it's a little bit smaller. Modern firearms don't have that same discrepancy, but firearms from this period do, because you had to manually put the projectile in from the muzzle. And if it was a really tight fit, yeah, you can get it in, but it would take a lot of force and a lot of time, which you didn't have if you needed to load this quickly. This is small enough to just simply roll straight down the barrel and straight out. Now, when you loaded this, you typically would patch it with something. I have little cotton patches that you put on the end. After you put the powder in, you put the ball in, take out the ramrod, and send it all down there. And that gives it a nice tight fit, so you could keep it loaded and it's not going to fall out. Trust me, it will not fall out. Now, this is not an original pattern 1756. It is a replica, and a lot of you might be unimpressed by that, but to me it's good because I know it's not that expensive. I could shoot it, I could have fun with it, and I'll send a link to where I bought this from. I'll put it in the description down here. And you know, I got it for about $300 from Canada. And the interesting thing about this is it was actually made in 1970. And I didn't know that until I took the barrel off to do a thorough cleaning when I first got it. I saw it was date stamped November 10th. Hell yeah, it's 1970. And I was the first person to fire this. And I know this for a fact because I had to manually drill the vent hole that goes from the pan into the bore. It can't be fired without that hole. So, I mean, something to be 40 years old and me, the first person firing it, I thought that was pretty exciting. Now I'm going to explain some basics about how it works. Now, just like modern firearms today, you need gunpowder. I use gunpowder, which is now called black powder to distinguish it from modern gunpowder. It's FFFG, or 3F gunpowder. Now, the F's mean the size of the granules, or the coarseness of the powder. The more F's, the finer the powder. For cannons, you would use 1F. For long guns, you would use 2F. For pistols, 3F. And 4F is what you would use as the primer. And the primer does exactly what it sounds like it does. It primes. Primers did not go anywhere. They're still here today. Basically what you do is you put the primer in the pan here. You only put a little bit in, and what happens is when you close the hammer, you cock the flint back. When you pull the trigger, the flint strikes this metal and creates sparks. And it's angled in such a way that the sparks fall into the pan. You want finer powder because the finer the powder, the easier it is to ignite from a spark. And I'll demonstrate just the sparks now. Now if you saw that, some of those sparks would have fell in the pan, ignited the powder, which would travel through this hole and ignite the powder in the barrel, sending the projectile forward. Modern day cartridges have the same components that these old cartridges did. They have the projectile. In this case, it's a conical bullet as opposed to a round lead ball. But it's the same thing. It's the part that fires out of the weapon and hits your target. They have gunpowder here in the casing. You can't see it, but you might hear it. I don't know if you can hear this, but that's full of gunpowder. It's not black powder anymore. It's what's known as smokeless powder. It yields a much greater force than the old black powder does. Now, modern firearms also have a primer, but the primer works in a different way. Now, in this circle in the middle of the back of this round is something similar to what you'd find in a cap gun or those little poppers you use on the 4th of July. It's a very weak explosive, but it's susceptible to shock. So when you pull the trigger of a modern firearm, a firing pin hits that primer, causing it to ignite, and that's enough to ignite the gunpowder in the round, which sends the projectile out. In the old firearm, you use the sparks to ignite the primer, which ignites the charge. It's the same basic concept. Now I can sit here and talk about this all day, but instead I'm going to actually take this outside somewhere and show you the loading procedure. I'm not going to load a projectile into this because I'm not shooting at anything, but I'll show you the basic steps, and I'll put a patch in there just to demonstrate the use of the ramrod. One of the worst things a person can do with their firearm is to irresponsibly discharge it. A lot of people get drunk on Independence Day or New Year's and they shoot their guns up into the air. Well, that is not a good thing to do. If for any reason you need to discharge a firearm, you point it at the ground and fire it. Do not point it in the air, because unless something is going faster than 7 miles a second, that's the escape velocity of the Earth, by the way, it's going to fall back down. And people get killed by these rounds. A lot. It happens all the time. Just this last New Year, a kid, I think it was about 12-year-old kid, got hit by a round that someone shot into the air, came back down and hit him. You gotta realize that these things come back down and they kill people. Now most times, yeah, it's probably not gonna hit someone, but it's not worth the risk just for a little drunken fun. Now, being in the Marine Corps, they taught us 4 safety rules. 4 rules for any firearm, and you're good. You follow these 4 rules, nothing bad will happen. The most important ones to me, just treat it like it's loaded, and that encompasses everything else. You want to point a loaded gun, or you shouldn't point a loaded gun at your friends. Not as a funny joke, not as a scare or gag. It's not funny. People get killed all the time for stupid shit like that. And I apologize for my language, but it is stupid shit. Do not treat these things like toys. They are killing weapons. Even this that was designed in 1756, it's still a killing weapon. It killed people 250 years ago. It would kill a man today. People aren't made any tougher than they were back then. But all that being said, let's go outside. Let's show you how to load this, how to operate it, and I'll show you some test shots fired with it, minus the projectile. Let's go. Alright, so what you're going to do first is you're going to load your pre-measured amount of powder, which I have in this powder measure here. Pour it right down the muzzle. Then you would take your patch, put it over the muzzle. You take your ball. I'm not putting one in, I'm firing a blank. Get the ramrod out. Ram it all home. Replace the rammer. Then you would take your priming powder. You just put a very little bit, you get a close up of this. You just put a very little bit of priming powder in the pan. Don't put too much or else you'll have a hang fire. This goes into this hole, igniting the powder, sending the round out. Then you're going to close the pan and you're ready to fire.